On our wedding anniversary, my pregnant wife insisted that I accompany her to climb a mountain. However, when we reached the top of the mountain, we unexpectedly met Lidov, the white moonlight who had been missing since my wife's youth. I originally wanted to take my wife to declare my sovereignty, but my wife looked at me with red eyes. She said to me with a complicated expression, "If it weren't for you telling my parents, and making me be forcibly brought back to my country, how could I have Miss Lidov who was locked up right next to the police station? Fayoleti. This is what you owe me." After saying that, she pushed me off the cliff. When falling off the cliff, I looked at my wife in disbelief as she cried and buried herself in Lidov's arms. Until I died. I couldn't believe that my life would end like this. When I opened my eyes again, I was actually reborn before everything started. "Hey, what are you in a daze for? Fayoleti? Have you bought the plane ticket?" A familiar voice pulled my thoughts back from the moment I fell off the cliff and died. I turned to look at the owner of the voice. "Fayoleti, you haven't even entered the webpage. What are you doing?" The pretty face of a young girl came into my view. She looked at my computer screen, her face showing a hint of anger. This is Aid in her teenage years. She is the wife I protected all my life in my previous life. She is also the culprit who pushed me off the cliff in my previous life. Bookworm. Have you read yourself stupid? Can't even buy a plane ticket? I frowned and looked at Lidov who walked out from behind Aid. His rebellious appearance now is completely different from the gentle way he held Aid on the mountaintop in my previous life. The scene of the two of them standing together now overlaps with the scene of them embracing on the mountaintop. "Why?" I put my gaze on Aid's face and asked softly. "Why did you betray me? Why did you kill me? Why can't my love for you for so many years compared to him? Fayoleti. Are you crazy?" Aid frowned her delicate eyebrows and looked at me in confusion. "I'm not going." I lowered my eyes, stood up, picked up the school bag on the table, and left directly under the surprised gazes of the two of them. Yes, Aid now can't give me the answer for the future. Now it is the first half of my senior year in high school. Today is the day when Aid, and Lidov secretly ran to this internet cafe to buy plane tickets to Thailand for travel without telling our parents. Aid has liked ancient culture since she was young. When she learned that Thailand is the birthplace of Buddhism, she has always wanted to go and see it. Once I thought I would be the only one to accompany her, but Lidov appeared, like a hurricane. He could destroy the friendship between me and Aid that had been since childhood in an instant. Aid fell in love with him. Lidov. This person is as enchanting as the character, Yi in his name. He is a transfer student who transferred to our class in senior year. Different from us ordinary students. As soon as he came, he became the focus of our whole school. So even when I first learned that Aid was with him and I ran to ask her why, Aid told me like this. "Fayoleti. These are all your stereotypes. This is your prejudice." Then she said with joy in her eyes. "Although in your eyes Lidov is just a troublemaker, I know that he is the kind of person who can shine even in the dark. That kind of fatal beauty. None of you have." Yes, Lidov is very good-looking. There is always a hint of charm in the body of a teenager. Moreover, his personality is unrestrained and capricious, with unpredictable moods. He doesn't pay any attention to the school rules at all. I remember that he was late for the first school-wide assembly at the beginning of the school year. At that time, as the top student in my grade last year, I was giving a speech on the stage. But in front of all the teachers and students of the school, he rode a dark purple motorcycle to the podium. He raised his hand and took off his helmet neatly. His short black hair was casually flamboyant. He raised his head and glanced at me. I don't remember how chaotic the scene was that day. I only know that the tear mole at the corner of his eye is more dazzling than the sun shining on my face. Since then, the topics about him in the school are almost never the same every day. He is like a bottle of soda suddenly appearing among a group of plain water. I know I've lost. I am completely different from him. I can't do the same things as him. But I didn't expect to lose so completely. Obviously we grew up together since childhood. Obviously we have walked into the palace of marriage. Obviously we still have our own child. But she still pushed me off the cliff with her own hands for lead ove. What kind of person have I liked all these years? Perhaps I have never really seen her clearly. Now, I returned home in a daze all the way. The mobile phone in my pocket rang over and over again. They were all calls for my aide and Lee Ove. I sat on the sofa, took out my mobile phone and answered, "Hello. Fayette I. What are you doing? You won't have regretted it, right? If you tell my parents, I will break off friendship with you." Aide's angry voice came from the phone. When I heard her words, I gave a sarcastic smile. In fact, in my previous life, I shouldn't have been in this Thailand trip. It was me who was being cheap. It was me who couldn't bear to see Aide degenerate for lead ove. This Thailand trip was just a means for lead ove to comfort Aide because she did poorly in the exam and cater to her interests. But Aide agreed. She would actually run abroad with a man she had only known for a few months. I couldn't believe it and didn't want to believe it. I think it was lead ove who bewitched her and made her like this. Unfortunately, I couldn't persuade Aide. But I couldn't just watch Aide be rude and buy lead ove. There was no other way. So I had to ask to go with them. For this, I even threatened her with Aide's parents. Aide, do you hate me very much? I asked her in a low voice. Aide's answer was affirmative and straightforward. Yes. I really hate you now. I don't know when you became like my parents. You all want to restrain me. You all want me to become what you want. But have you ever asked me if I am willing? I finally met someone like lead ove who knows what I want and is willing to take me out of restraint. And you still want to stop us from being together. Aide became more and more emotional on the phone. It turns out that my sincere protection and concern are all bondage and restraint in her eyes. You are right. Aide. I shouldn't interfere in your life, I said in a flat voice. So I respect your choice. I won't care about anything about you anymore. Of course. I won't tell your parents either. Aide. This time, I will fulfill you. Okay. Fayette I. Aide was silent for a while. Her voice calmed down but there was endless coldness. You'd better really do what you say. If you still come to interfere in my affairs, then don't blame me for not showing mercy and tearing up with you. Also, I don't want to hear you slander lead ove again. You are not qualified to talk about him. After she finished speaking, she hung up my phone directly without giving me a chance to argue. I closed my mouth, put down my phone, and looked up at the setting sun outside the window. Aide's last heartless words didn't stir up a single ripple in my heart. In my previous life, I knew that in her heart, I was an abandoned child who could be discarded at will. But for a moment, I didn't know how to walk this path of rebirth. To retaliate against Aide and lead ove? Let them taste the taste of being killed too? But everything in my previous life has dissipated. Now Aide has done nothing. And in this new life, I don't want to trap myself in those memories that only I remember. Rather than retaliating against them, I want to live for myself once. After the midterm exam in Senior 3, it is the National Day holiday. Our school has a 5-day holiday. Now I plan to make good use of these days to review my lessons. In my previous life, because I went to Thailand, I almost died. Lee Tove's whereabouts are unknown. Aide directly dropped out of school due to depression. I was cyber-bullied and blackmailed in front of everyone and was greatly hit. I could have gotten into Tingshui University or Peking University with my grades. In the end, my grades plummeted, and I hastily went to an ordinary second-tier university. This time it won't be like that. I want to live the life I should have. But I didn't expect that Leet Ovenday 8 have already gone abroad and can still interfere with me. On the second day of the holiday, after I finished reviewing my lessons in the library and was about to go home, just when passing by a somewhat remote street corner, I was stopped by 3 boys. There was a familiar rebelliousness on their faces. I looked at the 3 of them and raised my hand to adjust my glasses. They are all old acquaintances. They are Leet Ov's followers. In my previous life, when Leet Ov disappeared in Thailand, these three people gave me a lot of trouble. Are you Fei? The one who spoke was a tall boy named Meng Fei. Yes. I looked at them and said calmly. But as soon as I finished speaking, one person rushed over and gave me a punch. Bang! My glasses were smashed and flew out. I took a few steps back and leaned against the wall. My mind went blank. Then I heard. Damn it. I hate people like you who pretend the most. Brother Fei. Let's just beat him. Why waste so much time talking to him? It was Li Qi. He is still the same, liking to use his fists to highlight his presence. But I held onto the wall to steady myself, and raised my other hand and said, Wait. Then I took the school bag on my back, and brought it to the front and opened it. Before they could do anything, I looked at them and said, Everyone. I have money. I'll give you money. How about you let me go? Don't you think? Before Leaky could finish his disdainful words, I took out a handful of RMB. This is all the living expenses my mother gave me. Damn. Leaky stared wide-eyed and snatched the money from my hand. He counted it in front of me. Brother Fei. Shall you? There are 3,000. In my previous life, I knew that the biggest reason why the three of them followed Leet Ov was actually Leet Ov's money. They are short of money and won't refuse money that comes to them. Sure enough. Shum Fake earled his mouth, took the 3,000 yuan from Leaky's hand, and put it in his pocket in a good mood. But I still got beaten up. After beating me up, the three of them took out their mobile phones with smiles, and took several pictures of me lying on the ground with a bruised face. Without thinking, they were all sent to Leet Ov. What three good dogs. Before leaving, Shming face squatted down, patted my already numb face, and said in an educational tone, Fei, for the sake of your being so sensible, I remind you not to pester Ayade anymore. She is our brother Yi's woman. This time it's just a small lesson for you. If you dare to have any more ideas about our brother Yi's woman, don't blame us brothers for being merciless. After they left, I slowly got up from the ground. I raised my head and looked at the black camera across the street corner and twitched the corner of my mouth. They are all over 16 years old. What can't they do well? When I reported the case, those three people were quickly caught. According to the police officer who sent me to the hospital, when they were caught, they were eating hot pot and drinking. Unfortunately, before they could enjoy it for a few sips, they were handcuffed by the police. Moreover, due to the extremely sufficient evidence, high-definition surveillance cameras, along with the photos they took with their own phones, the three people were directly detained by force. That night, I received a call from Leet Ov in the hospital ward. He was furious on the other end of the phone, and threatened that if I dared to let his good brothers go to jail, he would definitely not let me go. I laughed when I heard this. To be honest, I really wanted to know how he wouldn't let me go. Although I plan to live my life well, it doesn't mean I don't want revenge. If they can come to me, I don't mind digging a grave for them. So after listening to his nonsense, I replied faintly, then come. Obviously, Leet Ov was very angry because of my words. Before I hung up the phone, he was constantly cursing my ancestors for 18 generations. It was like impotent rage. I thought that without helpers, Leet Ov should calm down for a while. But I didn't expect that his so-called revenge would come so quickly. That day was at noon on the third day of the holiday. After I had lunch and was lying on the hospital bed reading a book. At this time, my mobile phone received several text messages, which were several photos. I took a look at them and smiled. When you have two enemies who are very good at courting death, you may really feel that you have won unjustly. I looked at them carefully. In the photos were Aid and Leet Ov. The two of them were lying on the bed naked. Leet Ov held Aid in his arms. The posture was intimate and his expression was joyful. To be honest, it was a bit disgusting. But at this moment, Leet Ov's call came. In the phone, His tone was full of pride and provocation. How is it? Isn't Aid lying in my arms very beautiful? So what? I flipped through the book in my hand and washed my eyes. I know you like Aid. But do you know? When she was sleeping with me, she told me herself that you are just a dog who has been following her since childhood. She has never liked you. TSK. You are really a failure. Lee Ove on the phone was like a jumping and scurrying melon picker, childishly trying to provoke my anger. But I had an indifferent expression and asked him calmly, Lee Ove, you said so much. Do you want to find a sense of existence on me? Or do you think that by doing this, you are better than me? I turned a page of the book in my hand. Before he could answer, I continued to ask, is this what you mean by not letting me go? So stupid? Aren't these eye-catching pictures the evidence you sent up? Lee Ove was angry. Obviously, he didn't expect that I would react like this. I didn't wait for him to continue speaking but directly interrupted him and continued. This morning, my lawyer told me that your good brothers will be sentenced to at least 2 years in prison for robbery and intentional injury. They are all because of you today. If it weren't for your instigation, how could they attract prison? Reflect on yourself. Also, those pictures you just sent, I have sent them to the police. Do you know that you are blatant pornographic and obscene items? Read more laws when you have nothing to do. Sending everything will only harm you. The other side was a bit hoarse. It should be that he was ashamed and angry. But I didn't have the mood to listen to his barking. I directly hung up the phone and blocked his number conveniently. Answering his harassing calls is really too time-consuming. I still have to study. I don't have time to play these boring games with him. Now, my mother and lawyer will help me deal with the matter of Ming Fei and those 3 people. I don't need to worry at all. Now I just need to make up my grades and enjoy the life I should have had. Of course. I also want to see if Lee Ove and Aid will still follow their original fates. But they are so good at courting death. They should not let go of such a good opportunity. The 4th day of the holiday passed quickly. On this day, I was almost recovered from my injury and was discharged from the hospital. After reviewing the knowledge points of this day, it was already past 11 o'clock. My mobile phone was very quiet all day, as if it was as usual. But today is the day when Lee Ove had a conflict with the local bully in Thailand in my previous life. It is also the beginning of me being fooled by Aid all my life. But now in my mobile phone, except for the messages sent by Aid a few days ago, there is nothing. It is too quiet. I was a bit puzzled. Could it be that because I didn't go this life, there is a butterfly effect? So that those 2 people didn't have that incident? Or is it true that this time Aid, as she said, will not ask me to help her again? As a result, in the early morning of the next day, I was still woken up by Aid's call. I sat up and answered the phone with narrowed eyes. Hello? The first thing that came from the phone was Aid's sobbing. Immediately after, there was Aid's hearternecting crying. I pinched the corner of the quilt. Looking at this reaction, I blindly guessed that they still followed the same path as in the previous life. But she kept crying and didn't say anything. I was a bit impatient, and asked directly. Aid? Something? If nothing, I'll hang up first. I still have to get up early and review later. Aid on the other side stopped crying immediately when she heard my words. She paused. Then her crying voice came from the phone. Didn't you hear me crying? I heard it. So what? I asked. You haven't got to the point for a long time. Do I have to wait for you? Perhaps sensing my impatience. Finally, she began to choke and talk about her tragic experience. She said that when she went shopping with Lee Ove at night, Lee Ove found that the boss cheated them of money and had a conflict with the boss. But that boss was actually a famous local bully with a group of people under him. The 2 of them were chased and ran everywhere by them. Aid sprained her foot when running away. She was only saved when Lee Ove hit her in an alley. But Lee Ove was caught by that group of people near that alley. After Aid finished speaking, she cried and said to me, "I'm injured. Faye, let I come to Thailand quickly and pick me up and take me home." After listening to her story, it is almost the same as our experience in the previous life. But Aid didn't say that there were two hooligans in the alley where she hid. In the previous life, Lead Ove provoked people and ran away with Aid and got separated from me. If it weren't for me running to the police station and getting rid of the people behind me, and then taking the police to find her in time, Aid was almost violated. But this time, there should be no one who will save her, right? Faye, let I. Why don't you answer me? I'm very scared now. I'm afraid that those people will come and catch me again. Can you come and pick me up and take me home? Aid on the other side had a crying voice, looking aggrieved and frightened, just like in the previous life, when she asked me to help her find Lead Ove who was caught. But I sneered in my heart. Has she forgotten what she once told me not to care about her? So I reminded her. Aid, I said that I won't interfere in your life. Have you forgotten? And have you forgotten how you replied to me at that time? As soon as I finished speaking, Aid couldn't hold back anymore. She shouted, "Faye, let I. Our friendship since childhood. How can you say that you won't care about me just because you said so? Also, last time it was because you cared too much about me and I was angry. So I said that to you. Can I apologize to you?" As she spoke, her tone softened again. While crying, she said, "Lead Ove may have been killed by them. I'm so scared. I'm really so scared. I beg you." Okay. Yes, you know that we have a friendship since childhood. But in your previous life, you still killed me for Lead Ove? Moreover, your Lead Ove has a great life. In the previous life, he could still come back from Thailand and instigate you to kill me. Aid, I can't pick you up. You'd better tell your parents. I sat on the bed. A wisp of warm yellow light came in from outside the window and divided my room in half. You and I had no friendship as early as in the previous life. However, after I made it clear that I would definitely not pick her up, Aid's pleading turned into final abuse. Before hanging up, she said resentfully, "Faye, let I tell you, if I die, it will be your fault for not saving me." I put down the hung-up mobile phone, lay on the bed, and quietly looked at the ceiling in the darkness and grinned. If you die, then I will have avenged a great enmity and be overjoyed. But sometimes things always go against our wishes. Aid was still picked up by her parents and was suspended from school. However, the matter of Aid and Lead Ove spread all over the campus soon after school started. The 5 days of National Day holiday passed quickly. The teachers in the school are also preparing to start the second round of review courses. I can still keep up with the progress. On this English evening self-study, after the teacher finished explaining the test papers, we reviewed by ourselves. I was discussing a big question with my desk mate Zhang Li. Just when we were halfway through, the boy at the back table started to pull my clothes. "Zhang Ming, what are you doing?" I turned my head and frowned at him. But he didn't notice my irritability at all. He leaned over and asked me in a self-conscious low voice by my ear. "I heard that Aid was raped when she went to Thailand. Faye, let I. Is this true?" After he finished speaking, I glanced at my desk mate Zhang Zun. Her eyes were very calm. "Have you heard about it too?" I asked her. "Yes, recently. It has been spreading in our school. There is also news about Lead Ove. There is also news on the school's post bar." Zhang Zun nodded and said, "So, Faye, let I. Is this true or false?" Zhang Ming leaned in front of me. The gossip in his eyes was about to overflow. "Why don't you ask Aid?" I pushed his head away, speechless lie with my hand, and didn't answer his words anymore. In my opinion, this is the retribution of Aid and Lead Ove. This is God's eyes opening. I thought this should have nothing to do with me at all. But when I came back from school at night, I met Aid. She was standing at my door. Obviously, she came to me specially. This is the second time I have seen her since I was reborn. Different from her bright appearance the first time. This time she was haggard and pale. Her face was gloomy and her eyes were red. When she saw me coming, her first words were a question. Did you do this? What? I looked at her, not understanding. Aren't these sent by you? Aren't the words spread in the school said by you? Aide handed her mobile phone to me. On it was a post on the school's post bar about Aide and Leo going to Thailand. I took a glance and then looked at Aide, who was about to collapse, and said, I didn't do this. Her tears fell. Aide is actually very good looking. She is as beautiful as a lotus emerging from clear water. Moreover, she plays the zither very well. Her grades have always been on par with mine. So in my previous life, I admired her very much. I also didn't want to see her degenerate. Later, Leetove was caught in Thailand. After she came back, she couldn't accept it and got depression. I took all the blame on myself, just to not want her to be hurt by the outside world like me again. How could it be? How could it not be you? If not you, then who? Who could it be? She shook her head, grabbed my clothes, and kept questioning me. I was so wrong. People like them who are so self-righteous shouldn't get any sympathy or help. I frowned and brushed off her hand. Aide, if you have a problem, go to the police. I can't solve cases. How would I know who did it? Then I walked past her and casually patted the place she had just grabbed. I was about to open the door and enter the house. So, you think I'm dirty too, right? Hearing this, my hand paused when opening the door. I turned to look at her. More and more tears flowed from her eyes, like broken white porcelain. I said to her very seriously, yes, but it's not disgust. It's nausea. Fayolette. Aide looked at me in disbelief. Her whole body was swaying. After looking at me for a long time, she finally confirmed that I wasn't joking. Ah! She let out a scream and completely collapsed. She cried and ran away from my door. Looking at her back, the corners of my mouth slightly rose. Can't take it anymore? After dinner, the sky had completely darkened. According to the plan, after I finished today's homework and looked at the time, it was past 11 o'clock again. I tidied up my desk and was about to go to bed. Beep, at this time, a message came on my phone. I opened it. It was sent from abroad, since confirming that both the Aide and Leetove have followed their fates in the previous life. I started to contact a Thai policeman in Bangkok under the guise of Leetove's classmate. In the previous life, I didn't find Leetove, but I must find him this time. I will never let Leetove disrupt my future again. He better rot here and now. Leetove is locked up right next to the police station. This was told to me by Aide herself in the previous life. And now this policeman sent me a message telling me they did find a very suspicious hotel next to the police station, although it hasn't been confirmed yet. I don't know why, but I always feel that that is where Leetove is locked up. So I had a rare good sleep tonight. But early the next morning, Aide's parents came to my house. Because Aide was missing, they couldn't find her after searching all night. This morning, I checked the surveillance in the community and found that the last person Aide saw before disappearing was me. Aide's mother looked at me with red eyes and pointed at me, saying painfully, "When you were little, you grew up with my Ran. How could you make her run out so sadly after you said those things to her? She still hasn't come back. If something happens to her, aren't you taking my life?" I didn't reply. I lowered my head and put the milk warmed up by my mother on the dining table. Then I took out my phone and found the post that Aide showed me yesterday. I put my phone on the table and motioned for Aide's parents to look. "Uncle and Aunt, there have been some bad rumors in our school recently about Aide." Aide's parents walked up to me hesitantly and picked up the phone. This nonsense. There is no such thing. Aide's mother trembled all over with anger after looking at it for a few times. Aide came to me to ask who posted these. But I don't know who it is either. So she ran away crying. I looked at the two of them and said, I couldn't let myself be bored and with such a terrible statement that Aid ran away from home because of me. Aid's father put down my phone and looked up at me, replying in a deep voice. Zhao Shi, we have disturbed you. But can you tell Uncle and Aunt if Ran has any places she likes to go? Or places you often go? So we can find her. Actually, I didn't know where Aid would go. In the previous life. She was also missing. At that time. In order to find her, I almost went to all the places Aid had been. Even the internet cafe and bar that Li Ove had taken Aid to. I went to look for them. In the end, I found her outside an ancient temple that Aid and Li Ove had visited. She stared blankly at the 2 reed ribbons hanging on the peach tree, while holding a knife and constantly cutting her wrist. The bright red blood sprinkled on the grass was extremely dazzling. I was both shocked and distressed. Only then did I know that she had suffered from severe depression. So I softened my heart. I was afraid that if she experienced cyberbullying again, she would cut her neck with a knife. For a while, the words that originally scolded Aid for seducing people on the internet turned into me. A scheming man. Everyone thought that it was because I was jealous that Aid liked Li Ove. So I took Aid and Li Ove to Thailand. It was me who caused Li Ove to disappear and Aid to be depressed. Then I was cyberbullied, isolated, and blackmailed by the Goof family again and again. Now, all these should be returned to the original owners. I raised my head and looked at the clock on the wall. It would be 7 o'clock in a few minutes. Then I told Aid's parents that Aid liked an ancient temple outside the city very much. Maybe she would be there now. After I finished speaking, the 2 of them left in a hurry just like when they came. There is morning reading at 7:30 in school. I drank up the milk on the table in one gulp, and then took my school bag and got on the driver's car. I sat in the car and looked at the wrong exercise questions from yesterday. But when I was about to reach the school gate, there was a traffic jam. A sharp scream came from outside the car. Immediately after, there was a commotion of a group of students. I put away my book and rolled down the window. In front of me, 2 girls wearing the school uniform of the same school had their backs to me, and just blocked in front of my car window. The 2 were pulling and tugging. Hey? Is that Aid? Damn. It really is. Hurry up. Take out your phone. No. Teacher Lee is over there. If you want to take it out, take it out yourself. Don't you know that my phone was confiscated by my mother? Can I use yours? I raised my eyebrows. I didn't expect Aid to be at the school gate of our school. Uncle Wang. Stop the car here. I opened the door and pushed aside the noisy crowd and walked all the way to the school gate. From a distance, I saw 2 people fighting. One of them was Aid. I was actually wrong. But there was nothing surprising. Now, everyone's experiences have changed. The surrounding students whispered as they watched the 2 people fighting. The bold ones took out their mobile phones and started secretly recording. But as soon as they saw me, they closed their mouths. Thanks to Aid and Li Ove. When the 2 of them were in love. As the childhood sweetheart who grew up with the heroine. I also became popular for a while. But these are not important anymore. As I got closer, I could see clearly the person being beaten by Aid was her cousin. Her cousin is a liberal arts student in class 14. Her grades are mediocre. But she has a good relationship with Aid. When Aid and Li Ove were in love, she helped Aid cover up for her parents. Hey. What are you looking at? Don't you have class? The teacher Lee, that the 2 girls just mentioned, is our grade director. He frowned and shouted at us students who were watching the show. The surroundings became quiet. Everyone consciously walked around Aid and them and walked into the school. But their eyes still honestly fell on the 2 of them. I also walked inside while looking at Aid's situation through the crowd. After a while, the school teachers and security guards came out and wanted to pull the 2 apart. But Aid gritted her teeth, her eyes full of anger, and firmly grabbed her cousin's long hair. As soon as someone pulled her, her cousin would scream in pain. For a moment, several teachers and security guards were at a loss as to what to do. The classmates around me saw the scene and started secretly covering their mouths and suppressing their laughter. But after a few times, her cousin also got angry and slapped her on the face. Pa! Aid was actually knocked down to the side by the slap and didn't get up again. At lunchtime, I heard that in the end both of them were sent to the ambulance. Later, after Aid's parents and Aid's cousin's parents were called by the teacher, they had a big fight at the school gate. It was all because of the posts about Aid hanging on the post bar. After verification by the school, those posts about Aid and Leo were all posted by her cousin. I think it's quite interesting. No wonder Aid fought so fiercely with her cousin. It turns out that when she was backstabbed by someone she trusted, she would also be so angry. And then I got a piece of good news. The Thai police succeeded. After what happened at the school gate, I went to see her in the hospital the next day. But for some reason, she has never woken up. According to the doctor, it was due to fainting caused by excessive stimulation. I stood in front of her bed and looked at her for a while. Aid. In this life, I haven't interfered in your life. I hope everything is as you wish. On October 13th, it had been almost half a month since I was reborn. On this day, I received a message from the Thai police. After several days of investigation, they determined that the hotel was actually a place for human trafficking. Later, when they carried out the arrest, they arrested 10 criminals and more than 20 victims, including Lee Tove. However, Lee Tove was seriously injured. One of his legs was even broken. Now he has been sent to the hospital for rescue. It is estimated that it will take some time before he can be repatriated to China. I thanked him solemnly. It doesn't matter if he is injured, as long as he is alive. After all, only when one is alive can one enjoy the sufferings of the world. Right? Lito's matter was almost resolved. This time, I can finally completely relax and focus on my studies. According to my plan, my scores are steadily improving. In this week's weekly exam, my grades are almost very close to my original level. The comprehensive score is only 30 points short. There are still some knowledge points that I am not proficient in applying. For this reason, I asked my mother to sign me up for a tutoring class. Once a person is busy, time passes quickly. On this day, as usual, I walked into the classroom while reciting the required classical Chinese texts. As soon as I put down my school bag, I found that the atmosphere in the classroom was a bit strange. I looked up and glanced at my desk mate. She gave me a look. People around were looking in one direction from time to time. I turned my head. There was a person sitting in the second to last row by the window on the right. It was Aid. Originally, she was sitting in front of me. But in order to sit with Lee Ove, she transferred to Lee Ove's side. I looked at her and found it a bit strange. She seemed different. But this has nothing to do with me anymore. Now I want to improve my grades even more. I plan to be admitted to Peking University this time. But my score is still not good enough. So I am going to participate in a recent math competition. If I am in the top 3, I can be directly recommended to the mathematics department of Tingshui University, or Peking University. The exam starts on December 15th. I think I can give it a try. And I just want to study mathematics. So I must seize this opportunity. Today, Aid seems to be full of energy and wants to study hard. She was quietly attending classes all day. The classmates who would occasionally talk about her originally also started to bury their heads in doing exercises when they saw that she didn't respond. In Senior 3, time is made of gold. No matter how big the gossip is, it will disappear when the questions can't be done. Fail at I. Why didn't you stop me? After school, Aid caught up and stopped me at the street corner outside the school. You clearly came back. You knew what would happen. Why didn't you stop me? Why did you watch me and Lee Ove go to Thailand with your own eyes? In her unwilling questioning one after another, I finally knew what was different about her. So, she was also reborn. I looked at her, curled my lips, lowered my head. and leaned close to her ear and asked softly, Ayade, how dare you stand in front of me? Have you forgotten how I was killed by you in the previous life? At this time, she seemed to realize it. She trembled slightly and took 2 steps back. She looked at me with flickering eyes. No, it wasn't what I wanted. It was Li Ove who forced me. Right. It was he who wanted your property. So he made me kill you. Oh? Is that so? I stood up straight, looked at her, frowned, and thought about the credibility of this sentence. That's it. He not only tricked me into killing you, but also tricked me into going to Myanmar. Even after I gave birth to his child, he gave me to other men. It was he who calculated us. It was he who ruined my life. Ayade said more and more. At the end, she was so angry that she trembled. Her eyes were full of crazy hatred. So, you were in contact with Li Ove long before I died. Even the child in your belly is his. Right? I looked down at her, without any emotion on my face. In fact, I have had this guess ever since I was reborn. Why did she have to go climbing? And why wasn't she surprised at all when she saw Li Ove? Now the answers are all clear. Ayade raised her head and opened her mouth. Ayade, what right do you have to question me? Do you know how I died? I looked at her coldly and said in a flat voice, in fact, I didn't die when I fell. I was bitten to death by wild dogs at the foot of the mountain, one bite at a time. So Ayade, how much do you think I hate you? And you still dare to come in front of me now? After saying that, I didn't care about Ayade who had stiffened anymore. I directly passed her and left. I still had to go to tutoring class. Later, Ayade never dared to appear in front of me again. Even at school. As long as she saw me, she would hide far away. I'm not interested in paying attention to her. Only when my future is bright enough will Ayade's future be so gloomy. Now the math competition is about to start. And I have also signed up. But during this period, something did happen. Ayade was hospitalized again. After Li Ove's uncle and aunt knew about Li Ove and Ayade's affairs from the internet, they ran to the school to ask Ayade for compensation. In the previous life, it was also Li Ove's uncle and aunt who came to me. At that time, I learned that Li Ove's parents had passed away when he was a child. He was always raised by his uncle and aunt. So he was especially rebellious. Because Li Ove's biological parents were in good economic conditions and left him a large inheritance. But his uncle and aunt also set their eyes on his parents' inheritance. Therefore, Li Ove almost grew up in dire straits. Perhaps this is also the reason why he values his brothers so much. When Ayade was arguing with them, she accidentally fell down the stairs and broke her hand. At present, only I know that Li Ove is still alive. Since all of Li Ove's passport, mobile phone and everything were destroyed after he was caught by the local bully. So there is nothing that can prove his identity. And he is still unconscious. Therefore, Li Ove's uncle and aunt naturally didn't receive any news about Li Ove. Of course I won't tell them. I am very happy to see them fight like dogs. Especially when Ayade is bitten. There is still more than a month before the competition exam. The school has organized intensive training for the students who have signed up for the competition. I am even busier. I learned about Li Ove's return to China at night. It was still that Thai policeman who told me. He said that he sent this batch of cheated Chinese people back home. And let me not worry about the safety of my classmate anymore. Because Li Ove can return to China tomorrow. I thanked him sincerely. He is a good policeman. It made me feel a little ashamed of him. But no matter what, I will not allow Li Ove to become my variable. After a month of intensive training, I have more confidence in this competition. On December 15th, the math competition started. It was held in an international school in the city. One exam lasts 2 hours. After the exam, I stood outside the examination room and looked up at the dazzling sun. I think my life may also be so splendid. My competition results will not come out until early January. There is still a long time. because I am not sure if I can really pass the exam. So I still sort out my knowledge framework. Continue a new round of review. My science scores are indeed good. And my scores increase quickly. But my Chinese and English scores don't increase much. After all, it is not enough accumulation. Next, I resumed my life of constantly doing exercises and reciting texts every day. But in my spare time, I also heard gossip about Aid and Leet Ove. I heard that after Leet Ove returned to China, because his leg was lame, he asked his uncle and aunt to suspend his schooling and take him to treat his leg. His uncle and aunt were unwilling. They made a scene at the school. Leet Ove was so angry that he took the money at home and ran away by himself. And after Aid broke her hand, she recuperated in the hospital. But unexpectedly, after Leet Ove ran away, he actually found Aid. The two had a big fight in the hospital. People around took pictures and posted them online. In the video, Aid's other good hand was holding a saline stand and smashing it at Leet Ove crazily. While smashing, she cursed. "How could you come back? Why didn't you die in Myanmar? You liar. Bitch. How dare you come in front of me? Go to hell. Go to hell." Leet Ove was beaten bloody by her. While dodging, he was also cursing. "Crazy. It's fine if you don't lend me money. Why are you hitting me? You deserve to be slept with." These videos were seen by our school students again and directly exposed the things between the two. For a while, the two became popular. On the day my math competition results came out, I looked at the name ranked first on the official website and smiled brightly. Out of a full score of 100, I got 96. At the same time, Aid and Leet Ove were also jokingly called the crazy man and crazy woman in complete group by netizens on that day. On the day I received the notice of being recommended to the mathematics department of Peking University, my mother specially took a day off from work to accompany me. She made a big table of dishes for me. It's been a long time. I haven't eaten like this with her for a long time. Once I thought that she didn't like me, because my father had an affair when I was a child. After they divorced, she went out early and returned late every day. Although we were under the same roof, we often couldn't even see each other in a day. But later, in the previous life, when I was cyber-bullied and blackmailed, it was she who blocked these storms for me again and again. Only then did I know that in fact, she has always loved me very much. But in the previous life, she suddenly passed away due to overwork just after I graduated from college. Mom, don't be so busy with your work. Take good care of your body. Look, I have been admitted to Peking University. In the future, I will support you. On this day, there were tears in both of our eyes. But we smiled extremely happily. In the latter half of the semester, I didn't go to school anymore. I traveled to the south, saw the great rivers and mountains of the motherland, and met many good friends. But I still learned about the news of Aid and in the high school classmate group. I heard that because the impact of the online incident was too great, both Aid and Leet Ove were expelled from school. Leet Ove's leg still couldn't be cured, but he didn't believe that he couldn't ride a motorcycle. He secretly rode on the street but had a car accident. In the end, he was paralyzed and lay on the hospital bed. As for Aid, according to my mother, Aid had mental problems after being expelled from school. She often pulled people and said that she was reborn. She wanted to change her destiny. She could change her destiny. Then her parents took her and moved. Now whereabouts unknown. They are like dust, being lifted up by the wind, entangled and blooming in the air. But no matter how dazzling they were once, they finally returned to the dust. But the rest of my life is extremely magnanimous.